Boy gets pencil stuck in ear. Doctor pulls out something much worse. A little boy decided, for whatever reason, that it would be a good idea to stick a pencil in his ear, except it was actually something much worse. Children surprise and delight us, but there are plenty of occasions where adults question what the intentions behind some of their strange behaviors are. This young boy was one such situation, but with a weird twist. He decided, for whatever reason, that it would be a good idea to stick a pencil in his ear, except it was actually something much worse. Some toddlers and young children put small foreign objects into their ears, noses, or eyes out of curiosity. Why? They're experimenting with the world around them and learning what happens when they try different things. Louis King was definitely no longer a toddler, so no one, especially his grandmother, was expecting what he was about to tell them. The statistics show that children under 4 years old are the most at risk of inserting small foreign objects into their ears, noses, or even their eyes, but it seems that some of them don't outgrow the bad habit quickly enough. It was while Louis's granny, Sheila King, was babysitting that this whole story unfolded. It was the family's routine that Granny would look after Louis while his mom was away at work. Any babysitter's worst fear, even grannies that are looking after grandchildren, is that something bad happens to the child you are caring for. Sheila felt a wave of fear ice up in her veins when he first uttered those words to her. Her daughter would never forgive her if something bad happened to Louis, her pride and joy, while under her care. So, of course, that is exactly what happened. Louis was completely silent, coloring in his room. She should have known that a quiet child is up to something. It was silent when it happened and completely preventable if she had been watching him closely. But you can't watch a 10-year-old all the time. It was only when Louis started complaining about a pain in his ear that Sheila knew anything was wrong at all. She looked into the offending ear hole, but without any special tool on hand, it was impossible to see anything other than darkness and black. Time was of the essence now. Sheila quickly got her things together and followed the emergency plan. Louis began to cry and fuss with his ear when his gran couldn't find anything. She almost had to hold his hands down as he clawed at his face, panic making the pain inside worse. Sheila finally arrived at the hospital with the little boy in tow. By now, he had slipped from panic into sobbing tears. Dr. Philip Russell was the doctor on rotation that day. He looked into Louis's ear, but soon realized he'd need much more sophisticated tools to identify where the pencil nub was. The boy's ear was completely blocked. The pencil was lodged so deep in Louis's ear that it took a lot longer than anyone expected to get the tool around it, but eventually Dr. Russell managed the nearly impossible. He told Louis to hold very still as he extracted the dangerous piece of wood and graphite from deep inside the boy's ear canal. As the object reached the opening of the boy's ear, everyone was stunned. It looked nothing like a pencil at all. "You've done a good job of it, I'll tell you that," the doctor comments to Louis on the sheer depth of the object. His gran looks on and shakes her head in dismay. "Is that all of it or just part of it?" the doctor asks, and Louis responds with a decisive, "That's all of it, I think. Yeah, that's all of it." But the doctor wasn't satisfied with just Louis's word. "Let's have another look in your ear," he said as he tilted the boy's head again to complete the search. A tiny, round, and rather wide object balances in the doctor's forceps. Everyone in the room looked at the offending object, and puzzled looks spread from doctor to gran, and then they looked at Louis. "That happens to look more like a watch battery to me." Dr. Russell questions the boy, "Are you sure it was a pencil?" And suddenly Louis isn't sure anymore. "I don't think it actually was now." Having a pencil lodged inside your ear is dangerous enough, and the risks are obvious, as Dr. Russell explains. The worst-case scenario is that he gets a deep-rooted infection, and that could affect his hearing, balance, coordination, and if left long enough, he could even go deaf with it. "I can't see your eardrum, which means it's gone. It means you've made a hole in it," the doctor said, addressing the upset gran. "We don't repair it or anything. It will repair itself." Luckily for Louis, the eardrum is much like skin and should grow back naturally within 6 weeks. According to Lewis, the pencil was stuck into his ear not that day, but a full week earlier. He must have started getting a sore ear or just plain worried that his own attempts at getting it out were in fact only forcing it deeper. Either way, Gran was in the clear since none of this happened on her watch. Dr. Russell says it happens fairly often that kids stick things in their ears and noses. The fact that he said it was a pencil and it turned out to be a watch battery, I'll tell you, that's pretty bizarre. But we've seen this kind of thing before. Recently, a girl with a runny nose was discovered to have put a clothespin in there. The grandmother and grandson duo were chosen to appear on BBC's television series Bizarre ER before they even knew the strange twists that were coming up. They have since racked up an impressive 19,155,344 views on YouTube alone. What was weird and a little concerning was that the boy thought the battery was a pencil. So we have to ask ourselves, were there other objects he'd put up his nose or in his ear that he'd managed to get out successfully by himself? Or was poor little Lewis just afraid he'd get into more trouble for a battery than a pencil? It doesn't seem like he'll be telling us any of his secrets anytime soon, but we do hope he's learned a valuable lesson, even if just for poor old Gran's sake.